Gold at WILSA. I'm the incoming programs coordinator. So it's like I've just hit the ground sprinting. So you'll forgive me if I take a little bit longer. I hope the moderator will be a bit lenient, but I'll try my best. So I'm here standing in place of our director, Fadzai Tranquino. So I'm going to present about WILSA. So Women in Law in Southern Africa, Zimbabwe, as you know, the tagline is making the law work for women and girls. And our vision is a society where justice is equitably accessed, claimed, and enjoyed by women and girls in all spheres of life. The mission is to organize, coordinate, and support evidence-based interventions that promote and protect women. That protect women and girls' rights through legal and policy reform and changes to discriminatory social cultural practices. And the overall goal that WILSA is working towards is to contribute to gender equality and fulfillment of women and girls' rights. Next slide, please. So WILSA, I think the work that we do is anchored in 3 key pillars. The first pillar is the gender justice and equality. The second one is legal rights, education, and capacity building. And the third one is legal aid and support services. Next slide. How does WILSA work? So most of the work that we do towards the key 3 pillars are action research, advocacy and lobbying, partnerships, collaboration, networking, regional and international linkages. Next slide, please. Development of models, inclusivity and participation, use of different media platforms. Those are just the methodology, so I'm not going into detail so that I catch up on time. So under the gender justice and equality pillar, some of the key successes or the work that WILSA has done, it has contributed to the electoral law reform agenda around 1, the electoral law. WILSA has come up with a gendered model law. And number 2, Legal Aid Amendment Act. A research has been conducted. The Traditional Leaders Amendment Act, a research, and also a model law is going to be developed. Then Sexual Harassment Bill, also a model gender law on sexual harassment has been developed. Also, there's been research done on land policy. A commentary was also done on the Zimbabwe Independent Commission's bill. And then the Gender Equality Bill, a model law, has been developed. Also another model law was developed on the Labor Amendment Act. And research has been conducted on the age of consent to sex. And the model law has been developed on the marriage bill. And also a commentary was done on the private voluntary bill. Framework for local government quota for women, a lot of work has been done to ensure that the quota has been extended to local government. I think a colleague from Silvera House also contributed to that. Next slide, please. So as you know, WILSA does a lot of action research so that it informs our programming. So I'm going to run through a number of publications and researches that have been conducted. Some of them were done with support from Christian Aid. So there is accessibility of sexual reproductive health services during COVID-19 pandemic for women with disabilities in Mutare urban and rural areas, an assessment of the efficacy of informal justice system in addressing sexual and gender-based violence in Urungwe, Mutasa, and Umzingwane, assessment of the formal justice system in responding to SGBV, harmful practices, SRHR in Zimbabwe, building agency on maternal health rights, sexual reproductive rights, civil society gender profile on conflict and security assessment in Zimbabwe, which was supported by Christian Aid, cultural predicaments, cultural norms, power and control in addressing SGBV in rural domains in Zimbabwe. Next slide, please. Other research is also included. There was a simplified version of the National Development Strategy 2021 to 2025, standard operating procedures for handling and investigation of cases by the Zimbabwe Gender Commission, WICO's UN Women Wilsa publication report of 2021, Women in Peace Building, Safe Spaces report, Peace, Gender and Development Handbook, Women's Participation in Emergencies in Mutare District research paper, Model Legal Aid Methodology Handbook, Women and Girls' Sexual and Reproductive Health Rights during the COVID-19 pandemic in Zimbabwe, and then Wilsa ECID Study Circle Methodology on GBV and SRHR. More research and publications. Formal and informal justice systems in the context of SGBV, harmful practices, HP and SRHR in Zimbabwe, an issues paper on assessment of the efficacy of informal justice system in addressing SGBV in Urungwe. I think this one we mentioned it, maybe next slide. It was a repetition. So now when we come to the impact or how WILSA has been able to reach some of the goals that it is intended in terms of increased state responsiveness to maternal health and SRHR rights issues raised by the marginalized. So under a project that WILSA is implementing in Mutare, there was a demand for a healthcare facility at Jimbok. And so through the work that WILSA did, a clinic was built through the advocacy and the trainings that were held. And also there was a provision of potable water, access to water for residents of Dangamvura, also through the work that WILSA did in Mutare. And also an ambulance was also provided, also through the work that they did through empowering the communities to be able to exercise agency and demand the provision of these basic social services. Next slide, please. WILSA is part of the CSOs and policymakers